My name's Riley. I'm 17, and if someone had told me a year ago that I'd be living with my older brother instead of my dad, I probably would have laughed. But here I am telling you this story not from my childhood home, but from a tiny spare bedroom that smells like pizza and old gym socks, and honestly, it's the most peace I've felt in months. I guess this all started years ago. My mom passed away when I was 10. Cancer. I still remember how it felt to sit in that cold hospital room pretending I was okay while everything inside me was falling apart. Adithan Chirkun, 45, barely made it through that time. He buried himself in work and tried his best to keep it together, but truthfully, it was my older brother Chase who held me up. Chase was 15 back then, just a teenager still trying to figure himself out, but the way he stepped up, I'll never forget it. He cooked for me, helped me with homework, even braided my hair for picture day once. It was weird and messy and kind of amazing. We had this goofy bond filled with inside jokes and stupid nicknames that made life bearable. Dad used to say it reminded him of how Mom and I were full of light even in the darkest moments. So when he started seeing someone new, I tried to be supportive. I wanted him to be happy. That's how Monica entered the picture. She was 39, smart, polished, and worked with Dad at his law firm. Recently divorced with a daughter my age named Ivy. At first, I told myself it might not be so bad. Monica smiled a lot and Ivy seemed okay if a little quiet. But things moved way too fast. Like 6 months and we're engaged fast. Suddenly, we were a blended family, whether we liked it or not. They moved in, redecorated, and restructured everything. My butterfly wallpaper, which Mom and I had picked out when I was 8, gone. Replaced with beige and gray mature tones. Our kitchen, where Chase and I used to make burnt pancakes every Saturday, turned into Monica's pristine no-noise zone. The wedding was awkward. I stood there in a dress I didn't choose, smiling for pictures that didn't feel real. Chase noticed. He kept making dumb faces at me across the reception hall just to make me laugh. It worked until Monica pulled him aside and told him he was being childish. That was the first red flag. I should have paid more attention. Living with Monica and Ivy was tense. Monica was big on rules, curfews, quiet hours, phone usage logs. Ivy thrived under it like she was built for structure. Me, I felt like I was suffocating. Chase was still my safe space, though. He came by often, usually bringing donuts or fake emergency kidnapping rescues. Once he showed up in a full Batman costume just to whisk me out for ice cream. Dad laughed. Monica didn't. Over time, she started making snide comments. "You're too dependent on your brother. It's not healthy. You need to grow up." I brushed it off at first, but it kept happening. And what hurt more, Dad never shut it down. He just stayed quiet. Or worse, agreed. The tension grew slowly, like boiling water. Until Labor Day. Every year we hosted a big barbecue. It used to be my mom's favorite tradition. This year felt different. Cold, stiff. Chase had just moved back after college, and I was so excited to have him around again. During the party, I snuck up behind him and pushed him into the pool, classic sibling move, nothing new. He came up laughing, grabbed my ankle, and pulled me in. We were both soaked and cracking up. Everyone else was too. Except Monica. She stormed over like a thundercloud, yelling at Chase about how irresponsible he was and how he could have hurt me. I tried to explain it was just a joke, that I started it. She wasn't interested. Then she turned on me. 17 is too old for this nonsense, she snapped. You need to act your age. In front of our family, in front of my friends. I saw red, and maybe I shouldn't have snapped back, but I did. You're not my mom, I said, so stop pretending you can control how I act with my brother. Silence. You could hear the pool filter humming. I saw Dad's face, pale, shocked. Monica looked like she'd been slapped. Chase just stared, frozen. The barbecue ended early. People left in awkward clumps, whispering on their way out. That night, Dad knocked on my door. "We need to talk." He said he understood I was upset, but that I needed to apologize to Monica for being disrespectful. I couldn't believe it. She humiliated me in front of everyone, I said. She's been trying to turn you against Chase and me for years, and you let her. He told me I was being dramatic, that Monica was just trying to bring order into our lives, that I should try harder. That's when it hit me he was choosing her. Not outright, but enough to hurt. I told him I wouldn't apologize unless she did too for every time she criticized my clothes, my laugh, my brother, or the way I grieved Mom. He didn't respond, just sighed and walked out. The days after were brutal. Monica stopped speaking to me. She made Ivy pass along messages like I was some outsider. Chase, guilt-ridden, stopped coming by. Said he didn't want to make things worse. I started to feel invisible in my own house. Ivy, bless her, tried to mediate. Said Monica meant well, but she didn't understand. She never had to learn how to live with someone new. I was the one who lost a mom, and then watched her room, her kitchen, her life get erased. I began wondering if I was the problem, if Mom would be ashamed of how I handled it. But something inside me said no. This wasn't about tantrums or growing pains. This was about being erased. And I wasn't going to keep disappearing just to make Monica comfortable. After the barbecue, things at home spiraled faster than I expected. The silence between Monica and me wasn't just awkward, it was strategic. She didn't argue, she didn't fight. She just iced me out completely, which somehow felt worse. No yelling, no drama, just cold, careful distance like I was a problem she could file away. She stopped calling me Riley, started referring to me as her or your daughter whenever she spoke to Dad. Ivy noticed, but said nothing. Dad tried to act like everything was normal, like we could all just move past it without actually fixing anything. But I saw it in his eyes. He was tired, conflicted, and choosing comfort over confrontation. Chase, meanwhile, had disappeared. I texted him. No reply. I called, straight to voicemail. A week passed with nothing, and I was starting to panic. I knew he wouldn't cut me off on his own. Something had happened. Then one night, while lying awake, I got a message from him. Just 5 words, can't talk. She messaged me. My stomach dropped. The next morning he called. Quiet voice, tense, like he didn't want anyone to overhear. Monica had sent him a long, scathing message. Said he was a bad influence, that he was encouraging my emotional immaturity, that his presence was undermining her authority and disrupting the family. She told him he should stay away for a while for my own good. I felt like the air had been punched out of me. It wasn't enough that she had Dad wrapped around her finger. Now she wanted Chase gone too. And the worst part? It was working. Dad had said nothing. He didn't defend Chase, didn't tell Monica to back off. He just let it happen. Let her push the one person I still felt safe with out of my life like he was some troublemaking guest. I tried talking to him about it later that night, hoping maybe he didn't know the full story. But he did. He just didn't want to get involved. Said it was between you and Monica and that everyone needs to calm down. I stared at him, wondering if he even realized how much that hurt, how much he'd changed. Back when Mom was alive, Dad was the one who stood up for us. He was the one who defended family no matter what. But now with Monica, he just looked tired. Like he'd given up choosing sides and decided the path of least resistance was the only one worth walking. Monica wasn't subtle about her next move. New rules started popping up, ones that clearly only applied to me. A curfew, limits on phone time, chores I'd never had before. Ivy, of course, was free to do whatever she wanted. When I asked why the double standard, Monica said it was because I'd proven to be more difficult. Dad just nodded along, not even trying to hide it anymore. I started feeling like a guest in my own home. Like I had to knock just to be heard. One night, I overheard them arguing in the kitchen, voices low but sharp. Monica was saying it might be best if I went to live with my grandparents for a while, that maybe some space and structure would help me grow up. And then I heard Dad hesitate. He didn't say no. He didn't defend me. He just said maybe. Maybe that would give everyone a break. That moment snapped something inside me. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked quietly back to my room, shut the door, and stared at the ceiling for a long time. I thought about the macaroni picture frame I'd made for Mom in 2nd grade that used to hang by the staircase, how it disappeared the day Monica decided the hallway needed a more modern look. I thought about how she redecorated my bedroom when she moved in, ripping out every last trace of the space Mom and I had created together. I thought about how every memory was slowly being painted over with beige and silence. The next morning, I started packing. I didn't say anything to anyone. I didn't make a scene. I just grabbed a small suitcase and the old photo album Mom made me when I was 9, the one filled with beach trips, birthday cakes, and family smiles that didn't feel fake. Then I called Chase. He didn't hesitate. "I'm coming to get you," he said. He showed up that afternoon, and the second I saw him, I broke down. Not a dramatic sob, just quiet, messy tears, the kind that don't make noise but say everything. Chase didn't say a word, just pulled me into a hug and held on like he wasn't letting go this time. Dad tried to stop me as we were walking out, asked if we could talk, said we could work things out, but I couldn't bring myself to look at him. I just said, "You made your choice," and walked past him. Ivy was standing in the hallway, eyes red and watery. "You don't have to go," she whispered. "Please don't go." I paused. My heart cracked a little because I knew she meant it. Ivy wasn't the enemy. She was just as stuck as I was in a house that only made room for Monica's version of right and wrong. But I couldn't stay, not when every corner of that place felt like it was shrinking around me. The ride to Chase's apartment was quiet at first. Then slowly we started talking. About everything. About Mom. About Dad. About how we both had seen this coming, but didn't want to believe it. He told me Monica had tried to convince him for years to create distance, saying it was time for me to stand on my own. But he knew it wasn't about independence, it was about isolation. He looked over at me and said I should have stepped in sooner. I just shook my head. "You're here now." That night, I fell asleep in a sleeping bag on his couch, surrounded by pizza boxes, blankets, and the hum of old cartoons playing softly in the background. And for the first time in months, I didn't wake up anxious. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible. And even though I knew this wasn't going to be easy, new school, new everything, I also knew I couldn't go back. Not unless something truly changed. Not unless Dad stopped trying to balance everyone's comfort on the weight of my silence, because I'm done being quiet. Living with Chase wasn't glamorous. His apartment was small, cluttered with leftover college furniture, and the heater made weird clicking noises at night. But it was real. No eggshells, no walking around someone else's rules. Just two siblings figuring things out one day at a time. We split chores, rotated who cooked dinner, if reheating frozen meals counted, and stayed up too late, watching old movies Mom used to love. There was this weird comfort in it, even if nothing was perfect. At least it was honest. School, though, was a different story. Changing high school senior year wasn't easy. Everyone already had their circles. They'd grown up together, gone to the same middle schools, had years of shared memories I wasn't part of. I was the new girl, with no backstory. The one who sat alone at lunch and got polite smiles but not real invitations. It stung more than I expected. I missed the familiarity of my old school, even if being home had been unbearable, at least there I'd known who I was. Chase tried to help in the ways only an older brother could. He encouraged me to join a club, introduced me to his friend's younger sister Mia, who happened to go to my school. Mia was quiet but warm in a way that made me feel like I didn't have to pretend. We bonded, slowly mostly, over shared sarcasm and a mutual hate for chemistry class. She lost her dad when she was 13, so when I talked about Mom, she didn't give me that awkward "I'm sorry" pity face. She just listened. Back at Chase's place, we were getting into a rhythm. I found a part-time job at a local bookstore, tiny, tucked between a laundromat and a vape shop, but peaceful. The owner, Mrs. Green, was in her 60s and sharp as a blade. She reminded me of a kinder version of Monica if Monica actually had a soul. She gave me space, but she also gave me advice when I needed it. Sometimes I stayed late just to chat with her. It was the kind of support I hadn't realized I'd been craving. Then 2 weeks after I moved out, Dad showed up at Chase's door. No warning, just knocked around 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. I opened the door and nearly dropped the bag of takeout I was holding. He looked different, tired. Not just physically, emotionally drained in a way I hadn't seen since Mom died. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stepped aside wordlessly. Chase wasn't home yet, probably a good thing. Dad sat on the edge of the couch like he wasn't sure he was allowed to get comfortable. I didn't offer him water. I didn't ask how he was. I waited. "I miss you," he said. I crossed my arms. "I know you're angry," he continued, "and you have every right to be. I wasn't there for you the way I should have been. I let things go too far with Monica. I thought keeping the peace meant staying quiet." He paused, as if waiting for me to jump in. I didn't. "I read your messages to Chase," he admitted. "I wasn't spying. He showed me. I asked him to. I wanted to understand what I'd missed." I looked at him then. Really looked. He didn't have that lawyer mask on anymore, the one he wore in court or at family dinners when Monica was present. He looked like a man who knew he'd failed and finally stopped pretending he hadn't. "You didn't just miss it," I said. "You let it happen. You stood there while she erased everything Mom left behind and you said nothing. You let her treat me like I didn't belong in my own house." He nodded, eyes glassy. "I know." The silence stretched. I wanted to yell. I wanted to hug him. I didn't do either. "She read my diary," I said, voice flat. "She went through my room and read every page. She didn't even deny it. Just told me I needed help." His face twisted in shock. I didn't know that. Of course he didn't. He hadn't been paying attention. I wondered how much else he'd missed over the years. "She made you choose," I said, "and you hesitated." He looked down. I was scared. Of breaking another family. Of failing again. I thought maybe if I kept quiet, things would fix themselves. I almost laughed. They don't. Not when the fix is pretending everything's fine while one person gets pushed out. He stood slowly. "I'm not asking you to come back right now, but I want to fix this. I want you to know I hear you. For the first time in a long time, I really do." I didn't answer. I couldn't trust words yet. Not his, not anyone's. Trust needed time. Proof. After he left, I sat on the couch for a long time, takeout forgotten. My phone buzzed Chase, asking if he should come home. I told him yes, but not to rush. I needed a moment. Just one. That night, I pulled out the photo album Mom had made me. I hadn't opened it in weeks. I flipped through the pages: beach trips, birthdays, our old golden retriever named Pickles. One photo stopped me. It was from my 10th birthday, the last one with Mom. I was holding a cupcake with a ridiculous amount of sprinkles. Dad had his arms around both Chase and me. We looked happy. Real. I didn't know if we'd ever get that back. But part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't gone forever. The next day, Ivy texted me. Not Monica. Not Dad. Ivy. She said she missed me. That the house was quiet now. Tense. That Monica was in a mood and Dad barely spoke. She told me she was sorry I left, that she didn't do more. I replied, "It's not your job to fix what adults broke." She responded with a sad face emoji and a heart. It hurt in a strange, familiar way. I didn't want to hate her. And deep down, I didn't. Chase and I talked more that week about the future. About college. About what comes next. He helped me build a spreadsheet of scholarships, talked to his old advisor about transfer requirements, and even offered to help me get a tutor for math. It was weird having someone believe in me without expecting me to earn it first. No strings, just support. For once, I let myself believe things might actually be okay. Not perfect, but okay. And honestly, that felt like enough. A few weeks passed, and I started to feel the weight lift off my shoulders. Not all at once, more like shedding layers. One day, I realized I hadn't thought about Monica in hours. Another day, I walked past a bakery that used to make me sad because it reminded me of Mom, and instead of crying, I smiled. Healing doesn't come with a loud moment. It comes in small ones, quiet and unexpected. And slowly, I was getting pieces of myself back. School got better too. Mia introduced me to a few more people in her art club, and I started going after class. I wasn't good at drawing, but they didn't care. They just liked having someone who laughed at their jokes and didn't take things too seriously. For the first time since transferring, I didn't feel like an outsider sitting at someone else's lunch table. I belonged, even if just a little. At home, or I guess Chase's apartment, I started finding my rhythm. I kept the little bedroom clean, helped with groceries, and made sure my part-time shifts didn't interfere with schoolwork. Chase treated me like an equal, not a burden. Sometimes we'd just sit on the couch after dinner, both of us drained from our days, not talking much, but knowing we didn't have to. The silence wasn't heavy. It was safe. Then one Friday evening, Dad showed up again. He didn't bring Monica, just him standing at the door holding a small box. Chase and I were watching TV, and for a moment, it felt like everything paused. Dad looked nervous, like he wasn't sure if we'd even open the door. Chase answered, motioned me over silently, and then gave us space. I brought some things Dad said, handing me the box. I sat down on the edge of the couch and opened it slowly. Inside were little pieces of my old life things I hadn't even realized were missing. A charm bracelet Mom gave me on my 9th birthday. The butterfly hair clip I used to wear on school picture days. A couple of drawings Chase and I made when we were kids. Even the silly macaroni picture frame I thought Monica had thrown away. They were in a storage bin in the garage, Dad said. Monica wanted to clean out some things. I saw them and thought, maybe they belonged with you. I couldn't speak. My throat tightened, not from anger this time, but something softer. Something I hadn't felt in a while, maybe forgiveness, maybe grief, maybe both. Thank you, I whispered. He nodded, then sat across from me. I've been going to therapy, he said, almost too quietly. I needed to hear from someone else what I wouldn't admit to myself. That caught me off guard. Dad, who had always handled emotions with logic and silence, now talking about feelings like they mattered. He continued. She told me I spent so much time trying to build a new life that I never noticed I was leaving you behind in the old one. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. He looked down, then back at me. Monica and I are taking some space. I'm staying at a hotel right now. It's not permanent, but I told her I needed to figure out what kind of father I want to be, not what kind of husband. Father. That word hit me harder than I expected. Not lawyer, not provider, just father. I don't know if we can go back, he said, but if there's a way forward, I want to find it. With you. Not around you, not in spite of you. Part of me wanted to fall into his arms and pretend none of it had happened. But another part, the wiser part, knew better. You don't rebuild a house by covering the cracks with paint. You have to tear it down to the bones and start again. Still, it meant something that he was trying. I'm not ready, I said softly. But I'm not shutting the door either. He looked relieved, like even that small crack of possibility was more than he'd hoped for. When he left, Chase came back into the room. He sat next to me, glanced at the box in my lap, and then looked at my face. You okay? He asked. Not sure I said, but I think I'm starting to be. That weekend, I went through everything in the box. Every item had a memory tied to it. Some made me laugh, others made me cry, but all of them reminded me of who I used to be and who I still was underneath all the damage. I put the butterfly clip in my drawer and the picture frame on the small bookshelf by my bed. I wasn't going back to that house, but I was reclaiming what was mine. Later that week, Ivy called. Not just a text, a real call. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, she said quickly before I could say anything. I do, I replied, and I meant it. She told me things were tense at home. Monica was upset. Dad barely spoke to her. Ivy felt like she was stuck in the middle of a storm she didn't start and couldn't fix. I listened, really listened, and for the first time I saw her not as the girl who thrived under Monica's rules, but as someone who had just learned how to survive quietly. Maybe she didn't fight because she didn't know how. I miss you, she said. I miss you too, I replied. We talked for over an hour. About everything. About how weird families can be. About how sometimes silence feels safer than truth. About how hard it is to unlearn the idea that love is earned through obedience. When we hung up, I felt lighter. Days kept moving. I studied hard, worked my shifts, and hung out with Mia more. We even went thrift shopping one Saturday, and I bought this ridiculous denim jacket with sunflowers on the back. It was loud, bright, nothing like what Monica would approve of, and it felt perfect. For once, I wasn't shrinking to fit into someone else's version of acceptable. One night, while Chase and I were eating takeout on the floor because the table was covered in laundry, he looked at me and said, "You're different." I raised an eyebrow. Bad different. He shook his head. No, free different. I smiled. I feel it too. That's the thing no one tells you about leaving behind a life that doesn't fit you. Don't just walk away from the pain. You also walk toward a version of yourself you forgot existed. And that's who I was starting to become again. By October, the air had cooled, and my world felt strangely still, like I was finally standing on solid ground after months of shaky floors. I walked to school most days with earbuds and hoodie pulled tight, and my sunflower jacket always zipped halfway up. I didn't need anyone's approval anymore. I wasn't performing for Monica or shrinking for Dad. I was just Riley, no labels, no edits. At school, things had settled. I wasn't the new girl anymore. Mia and I were inseparable by then. We'd trade stories over lunch, help each other cram for exams, and sometimes hang out at the bookstore where I worked. She liked to sketch in the back while I restocked shelves, and we'd laugh about the weird customers who came in just to argue over expired coupons. It felt normal, like my life had stitched itself back together in quiet, careful threads. One Thursday evening, Dad called again. I almost didn't answer, but something in me said to pick up. He asked if I wanted to meet him for coffee. Just coffee, no pressure, no Monica, no big speeches. I agreed mostly because I wanted to see what version of him would show up this time. We met at a cafe near my school. It was quiet, tucked between a florist and a bakery with worn leather chairs and too many plants. I spotted Dad by the window, 2 mugs in front of him. He stood when I walked in hesitant, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to smile. I sat down, nodded at the coffee. I remembered you liked caramel, he said. I still do, I replied. We sat in silence for a few minutes, but it wasn't the uncomfortable kind. It felt like both of us were trying to say a lot without pushing too hard. He finally broke the quiet. Monica and I have separated. It's official now. I didn't react, not right away. He waited, letting the words hang there like they needed room to breathe. I tried to hold the family together, he said, but I realized I was holding the wrong parts. I looked at him, really looked. He had lines around his eyes I hadn't noticed before, and his suit didn't fit as neatly as it used to. But his voice was clearer than I remembered. Riley, I know I failed you. Not just with Monica. I failed to protect the things that mattered most. Like your bond with Chase. Like your right to grieve. I thought silence was the same as peace. But I see now it was just avoidance. I sipped my coffee watching the people outside walk past with scarves and grocery bags like their lives weren't cracking open like mine had. I didn't want a dramatic apology. I wanted honesty, and he was giving it. I appreciate that, I said. But I need you to understand something. I didn't leave because of one fight or one bad moment. I left because I felt erased. I felt like Mom disappeared, and then I started disappearing too. He nodded slowly. I see that now. I'm not angry anymore, I added. But I'm not coming home. Not like before. That house doesn't feel like mine. I'm not asking you to, he said. I just want to be part of your life again on your terms. That part stuck with me. On my terms. I'd never heard him say that before. We didn't stay long. We finished our coffee, talked a little about school and college, and then walked out into the cold. Before I turned to leave, he said something I'd been waiting years to hear. Your mom would be proud of you. I didn't cry. Not there. But that sentence wrapped around my heart like a promise I'd been needing, and I held it close the whole way home. Back at the apartment, Chase was sitting on the floor assembling a wobbly bookshelf he bought from a yard sale. He looked up as I came in. How was it, he asked. Better than expected, I said. He's trying. He left Monica. Chase raised his eyebrows. Didn't think he had it in him. Me either, I replied. But maybe people surprise you when they finally stop pretending. We ordered pizza that night, watched a cheesy sci-fi movie. Halfway through, I leaned over and said, You know you saved my life, right? He looked at me, caught off guard. Riley, you saved your own life. I just gave you a couch. But I knew better. He didn't just give me a place to crash. He gave me room to remember who I was. And when everything else fell apart, he was the one person who never asked me to change to be loved. Later that week, I started working on my college essays. I didn't write about grades or test scores. I wrote about rebuilding, about grief and found family. about how sometimes you have to lose a home to find yourself. Chase read my first draft and gave me one of his rare serious nods. "You're going to get in somewhere great," he said. I hoped he was right. But even if I didn't, I already felt like I'd won something bigger. A chance to grow up on my own terms. A chance to be seen fully and clearly without anyone dimming the light. A few days later, Ivy called again. This time she sounded different, more nervous, more careful. "I'm thinking about moving in with Mom," she said quietly. I paused. "Are things that bad?" "Monica's not doing well," she said. "She blames everyone but herself." Dad leaving made her spiral. I'm tired of being the glue in a family that keeps cracking. I felt a sharp pang of guilt, like maybe my exit had set off a domino effect. But then I realized I didn't cause the fall. I just stopped pretending everything was upright. "I'm sorry you're going through that," I said. "It's not your fault," Ivy replied. "Actually, watching you leave, it gave me courage. You did what I've been too scared to do." That night, I stared at the ceiling for a long time, thinking about how pain moves through a family like a shadow, only leaving when someone finally switches on the light. Maybe my leaving hadn't just been for me. Maybe it had been the first step in untangling years of quiet damage. Dad started texting more often. Not in a pushy way, just updates. A picture of our old dog at the vet, a video of him trying to cook spaghetti and burning it. It was small, but it felt genuine. I responded when I felt like it. I didn't rush. I didn't force it. We were building something new, and this time we were doing it right. There was still a long road ahead, but I wasn't walking it alone. And for once, I wasn't looking back, wondering what could have been. I was focused on what was next. Winter came quietly like a whisper across the sky. The trees outside Chase's apartment turned brittle and bare, and the wind took on that cold bite that made your breath feel like fog. Inside, though, life was warm. It was the kind of peace that didn't scream, just steady, honest calm. I spent more time with Mia and her family. They invited me for dinner once, and I ended up staying long after dessert, helping her mom wash dishes while listening to old jazz music on a cracked kitchen speaker. There was no drama, no eggshells, just laughter, real and simple. It reminded me of what family is supposed to feel like. Not perfect, just safe. At school, I found myself helping younger students in English class, something I never thought I'd enjoy. They asked me how I always had something to write about. I told them the truth: when you live through enough chaos, the words just sort of find you. And maybe that was the first time I realized I wasn't stuck in survival mode anymore. I wasn't waking up afraid. I was growing into someone I actually liked. One morning, I got an email from the admissions office at one of the colleges I'd applied to. It was short. Just a subject line that said, "Welcome to our family." I sat there in the school library, phone in hand, blinking at the screen like maybe I'd imagined it. I hadn't. I got in. Chase was the first person I called. He answered halfway through brushing his teeth and didn't even wait to rinse before shouting, "I told you so." I laughed so hard I cried, which felt right. Like the world was giving something back, little by little. Dad called later that night, said he was proud of me, that he'd already checked out the campus map and offered to help with move-in. I didn't give him a yes or no, just told him we'd talk more when the time came. Because rebuilding trust isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistency, showing up, and staying soft even when it would be easier to shut down. And to his credit, he was still trying quietly without expectation. Monica never reached out. Not once. And I think in the end that said everything. People show you who they are when they think they've won, but they really show you who they've always been when they realize they've lost control. She never said goodbye, never offered an apology, and I stopped waiting for one. Sometimes closure isn't handed to you. Sometimes you have to create it for yourself. Ivy ended up moving in with her mom after all. We still talk now and then. She sent me a picture of her new bedroom painted soft lavender with bookshelves lining the walls. "It's the first room that's ever felt like mine," she said. I knew what that meant more than most. I told her to keep going, to trust her instincts, that she was allowed to choose peace even if other people called it selfish. As the holidays approached, Chase and I decorated the apartment with cheap string lights and a crooked mini tree we bought at a gas station. We made pancakes on Christmas morning, burnt messy, full of laughter. I set a place at the table with one of Mom's old mugs, the chipped one with the blue flower on it. We didn't say anything about it. We didn't need to. Some memories don't need to be spoken aloud to be honored. Eventually, Dad asked if we could all have dinner together. Just the three of us, him, Chase, and me. We chose a quiet restaurant halfway between his place and ours. The kind with low lights and soft music where the clinking of silverware fills the pauses in conversation. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward silences, moments where none of us knew what to say. But there were also smiles. Real ones. And a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Chase cracked a joke about my overcooked grilled cheese from last week, and Dad laughed so hard he had to put his fork down. I looked at them both, these two people who had carried me in different ways, and felt something shift. Not everything needed to be fixed. Some things just needed to be different. And that was okay. Later that night, back in the apartment, I sat on the balcony with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. The city below was quiet, the sky holding back snow like a secret. I thought about everything that had changed since the day I left Dad's house. The heartbreak, the silence, the strength I didn't know I had. I remembered the version of me who sat in her room afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of being too much. I wanted to hug her, tell her she didn't need to be small to be loved. I also thought about Mom, how she used to say, "Some storms don't come to destroy you. They come to clear the path." And maybe that was what this whole year had been. A storm that left behind something raw but real. A new road. When spring came, I started packing for college. Chase helped me load boxes into his car, labeling each one in Sharpie. He kept asking if I needed this or that, and I kept telling him I was fine. But when we got to the last box, I saw him pause. It was the one with the photo album. The one Mom made. "You sure you want to take this?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, it's time." Because moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. It means carrying the right pieces with you. The ones that still hold love. The ones that remind you who you are and what you've survived. On my last night in the apartment, we ordered takeout and sat on the floor like we used to. No TV, no background noise. Just two siblings who'd made it through something heavy and came out better on the other side. Chase raised his water bottle like a toast. "To freedom," he said. I raised mine back. To family, the kind you fight for. As I stood in the doorway the next morning, suitcase in hand, Chase gave me a tight hug and said, "You'll do great things, Riley." "I already did," I replied. I chose myself. And with that, I walked forward. No looking back. Because for the first time, the path ahead didn't feel like escape. It felt like home. Story 2. For the third consecutive year, they failed to attend my birthday. My father emailed me a PDF bill for my brother's birthday celebration a week later. 2 to 200. Even here, we parted ways. I sent a message along with $1. "I'm not on board." I then canceled all of the credit cards and streaming accounts. They began to report fraud in a panic. I got a call from the bank. "They missed my birthday," I remarked with a giggle. "But don't forget to watch Netflix that evening." I realized then that it wasn't only carelessness. Something colder. It was my 28th birthday. Cake and candles were not what I had anticipated, just a phone call. Dinner, perhaps. I received quiet instead. My parents didn't text me at all. My sister didn't say anything. In a group conversation, not even a lazy thumbs-up emoji. I didn't have any major plans. A little gathering in my backyard. Tyler, my cousin, brought ribs. A few of buddies arrived with drinks. We engaged in card games, had music playing. I kept looking at my phone like a fool waiting, but other than that, it was quite good. Even if it was hours late, my mother would always text me something. Not this time, though. "Where's your family?" inquired Tyler. "They must have had other ideas," I responded. He looked at me. I choose to disregard it. I discovered their other intentions later that evening while perusing Instagram. At a vineyard in the north, my mother, sister, and aunt were all tagged. Tasting of wine, a trip to the spa, quality time with my girls is a caption for a selfie. On the afternoon of my birthday, they posted, "Don't bring me up." For longer than I would like to confess, I gazed at that picture. Not because I was taken aback. It wasn't the first time that this happened. It was obvious. I was always there for them when they needed something. Regarding her auto insurance, my sister needed assistance. I talked about it. Dad's hours were slashed, according to Mom. Their phone bill was paid by me. I have all of them on my streaming schedule. You name it, Hulu, Netflix, Prime. In an emergency, I would even permit them to use a credit card that is in my name. As it happens, the emergency was quite concerned about me. I made the decision to stop that evening. No guilt trip and no speech. Just take action. I started by going into each streaming account, changing the passwords, and signing out of every device. All of them. Netflix, Amazon Prime, Spotify, Disney Plus, and HBO Max. Lost. I looked over each person's login history. Yes. On the evening of my birthday, they were all still in use. Tyler and I were enjoying a beer in my garden as I pretended not to notice that my phone was dead silent. They were using my money to watch movies. Next, I looked at the credit card. It had been used twice by my sister for Postmates. It had been used by my parents to buy food. The bargain wasn't that. The card was frozen by me. After that, I closed it out and phoned the provider. I used my personal funds to settle the outstanding sum. Too costly. Yes. Is it worthwhile? Of course. The texts arrived the following day. Is Netflix down for my sister? Mom, your father's card isn't functioning. Could you look at it? I didn't answer. The following one was a bit more frantic. Again, Mom. The card continues dropping while we are at the store. What's happening? Then the bank called. Beware of fraud. Unauthorized behavior was reported, they stated, asked whether the account was frozen. Yes, I did, I replied. It's not fraud either. Simply putting an end to those who can only tolerate quiet on the other end. The bank representative was at a loss for words. In years, for the first time, I had a sense of control. Not upset, just got done. I was never considered family by them. Not at all. I was an ATM in disguise. There was no need for them to consider. I wasn't done, though. This was only the first step. I wanted them to experience the gradual disintegration and unease that comes with losing the lifeline they took for granted. If everything ended with a single cut, it wouldn't learn anything. No, this would be difficult and slow. It wasn't until their phones quit working that the true fear began. Because of the money, they could disregard the situation ceased to be bothersome and became unfathomable for them. They might defend this birthday. However, cutting off their ties to the world quickly caught their interest. I had begun with the credit cards and accounts. They took note, yes. However, they continued to believe it was only transitory. They thought that as usual, I would cool off, feel bad, and return everything. That's what I did before. Do not disturb the quiet. Pay the bills. Let them act as though we were a typical family. The collapse started when their phones, really died. The principal account holder was still me. All 5 lines of the family plan were in my name. Lost. I signed in, canceled the rest, and reduced it to simply my number. Completed in 15 minutes. Less expensive for me. Devastating to them. From somewhere, my sister used Wi-Fi to send me a Facebook message. She didn't greet me, just jumped right in. You actually disconnected our phones. Have you gone insane? I didn't respond. Simply read the notice, then exit the application. That evening, my mother wrote a panicked email. Real email. As if the headline was Urgent Call Me from 2005. She said in it that they had no means of communication. They were unable to access any websites. They couldn't get vital services. The hardest part was that they felt deserted, left behind. They wanted me to feel awful for not paying their bills, the same folks who, in similar white robes, ignored my birthday while drinking wine and smiling. That word stayed with me. I reflected on how frequently I had to cancel arrangements to take my mom to appointments and how I had had to pay for my dad's insurance when he fell behind. After every breakup, I would let my sister to collapse on my couch. No inquiries were made. I continued to give and give. They also handled it as if it were background noise. Then they dared to declare themselves desolate. My dad contacted me again that evening. I responded only to listen to his response. He didn't inquire about my health. They made no apologies. He plunged right in. "Mike, what the devil is happening? Why are you behaving this way?" I stopped acting. I said, "That's the situation." "I was being theatrical," he said, "that I ought to have spoken to them directly if I had an issue, rather than using nuclear power." And that's when I finally understood. They believed they had done nothing improper. They really thought I was the issue, that I was being too sensitive, behaving like a walking wall, and even missing my birthday. It was only family matters. They failed to grasp it. No, they would not. I leaned into it then. I compiled a list of all the things I had been managing or helping with, including ride-sharing credits, shared cloud storage subscriptions, Amazon household, and food delivery accounts. Everything is gone. Without their recognizing it, I touched every nook and cranny of the digital comfort they had become accustomed to. The worst one for them then arrived. I removed them from my Prime membership. No more shipment in 2 days. No more free films. No more savings. "Do you believe I set off a country club's fire alarm?" my Uncle James called at that moment. He is one of the few members of the family that genuinely earns his wealth. Drama is not to the old school guy's taste. I nearly didn't answer when I saw his name on the caller ID. However, I did. He didn't shout, didn't instruct me to make repairs. I only mentioned that I was aware of the situation. "Your mother says you've gone crazy." I wanted to know his opinion. After a little period of silence, he continued, "I believe you've finally drawn a line that they should have anticipated 10 years ago." I was completely stopped by that. I filled him in on everything, including the spa vacation, the birthday, and their attempt to defraud me after I reported their card as fraudulent. He didn't talk over you. Simply listen. Then he added, "Just make sure that you're not destroying them but waking them up." I wasn't sure myself, so I didn't respond straight immediately. I had no desire for vengeance. Not quite. I wanted them to know what it was like to be ignored, to be left out of the important parts, and asked to pay for the rest. However, the more I dug, the more I understood that perhaps they would never comprehend. Perhaps this had nothing to do with awakening them. Perhaps it was about waking up at last. It was calm the next week. Quiet, but not tranquil. The moment just before a storm arrives. I assumed they were getting together and attempting to devise a plan to use guilt to get me to undo everything. It always worked that way in the past. To keep the money coming in there was a mixture of phony concern, quiet, and then a flimsy apology. However, things were different this time. I didn't answer. I didn't recoil. They were seated in it by me. Then my door was knocked on. My sister was the one. It had been months since I'd last seen her. There she stood, dressed for the gym. She was without makeup, with a Starbucks cup in one hand and a dead phone in the other, as if she was unable to choose between negotiating and fighting. "Can we talk?" she said. I remained silent, just held the door open before entering again. After sitting down and glancing around as if she was waiting for help, she inquired whether I had had my brief moment and was prepared to make the necessary corrections. The word she used was that. Tantrum-like moment. I informed her that nothing would be fixed. No more. "Mom was worried sick," she added, rolling her eyes, "and Dad had to borrow a neighbor's phone to call his office. Said they didn't understand why I was destroying everything in a single day and were anxious and perplexed." I simply gazed at her. I came to the realization one day that there was a greater disparity between their and my perspectives than I had previously believed. I questioned her about if she thought this was all about a birthday that had been missed. She didn't respond, just continued to talk about how I had caught everyone off guard and interrupted them. So I made a list. I've been supporting them financially, emotionally, and technologically for years by paying their bills. Never received gratitude. I was never asked to do anything that didn't require me to assist them. And the one day, just one that wasn't about them, they excluded me on purpose, not by chance, voluntarily. She remained silent for some while. Then she made a statement that stuck. The explanation she continued was that you never asked for anything like that. Yes, I said that's what made it simpler to forget me. For that, she had no response. Soon after she departed, no yelling, no sobbing, again, only stillness. However, it's a distinct sort. Heavier. My mom sent me another email 2 days later. It wasn't frenetic this time. It seemed strangely quiet. She said that I should have approached them like an adult, but instead I handled things in a way that disappointed her, that I was selfish for shutting them off. Selfish, I felt the word in my throat like poison. From the woman who pretended I didn't exist and used my money to reserve a vacation to a winery. I was self-centered. I didn't respond. However, things worsened. It appears that points from one of the cards I had linked them to years prior were used to pay for the spa vacation they spoke about it. My arguments, my prizes. They had used my name to rack up thousands of dollars in meals and hotel stays. It wasn't until I looked through my account history that I realized. They didn't just ignore me. On my dime, they rejoiced. Then something inside of me simply stopped working. All the hurt, all the resentment, the sharpness subsided. It simply froze. My anger subsided. I no longer need their comprehension. All I wanted was some distance. Peace was what I want. And there would be no more justifications, no more second chances. I eliminated the credit company from everything after calling them. After that, I formally complained about my card being misused and their transactions were looked into. It may escalate, the representative warned. Let it, I replied. I had stopped playing their game. They continued to strive for victory, nevertheless. They began phoning the other members of the family to twist the truth rather than to apologize or offer an explanation. I began receiving strange texts from cousins within a week. It has been years since we spoke. Such like, hey, I'm not sure what's going on, but your mom looks like she's really hurt. Perhaps simply have a conversation with her before things go out of hand. We all make errors, Guy, one person even commented. She remains your mother. Still my mother. I laughed at that line. None of them bothered to argue with me. What was the purpose? The full story was unknown to them. When my mom ruined her credit, I sat up late helping her apply for aid, but they weren't there. They were unaware of the occasions when I forewent dining out in order to pay a debt. She didn't remember. They felt I was the villain after seeing the drama. Because the noise was coming from me. My mother was an expert in her field. She allowed the emotional, filthy work be done by crying to others who were unaware of the truth. A classic move. Make me appear unappreciative so she may maintain her victim persona. However, not everyone was convinced. I got a call from my dad's sister, Aunt Lisa. She has always appealed to me. She's intelligent. No filter, she said. 9 of the 10 variations of this story that I've heard seem awful. In reality, what took place? That's why I advised her not to mince words. They never even intended to thank me for the birthday. The cards, the streaming, the years of financial support, and the way they made me feel like a fallback option. She didn't speak out. She just remarked, "Yeah, that tracks," once I was done. Am I going too far? I questioned. No, you're the first one to quit acting like they're not selfish, she remarked. That struck close to home because that's just what it was. Acting. Acting as though we were close. Acting as though I was as important as I made them. They were acting as though I wasn't a convenience. I received another call later that week, this time from a friend of my mom's. I hadn't seen this woman since high school. She said that my mother was inconsolable, missed me, and feared that she would never be able to get me back. Here's what troubled me, though. My mother hadn't given me a call yet. Not once. She would email. She had dispatched individuals. The family had been agitated by her. However, she never once picked up the phone, swallowed her pride, and said that she had made a mistake. For her, that would be acknowledging that she had done something incorrectly. She was waiting for me to mend it again instead. At that moment, I realized that nothing had changed. Not at all. I decided as a result. I wrote a parting note. To put a stop to it, not to start a fight. I composed. I didn't ignore you because of a single birthday. You've spent years demonstrating to me that I was only helpful when I was useful, so I shut you off. I finally believed you when you excluded me from your life. I have lost my anger. I just finished. I forwarded it to my sister, father, and mother. I then blocked them. That should be the end of it, I thought. However, they don't tolerate quiet. When they're out of control, no. Everything became silent a week after I blocked them. No unexpected calls, emails, or messages from folks I hadn't spoken to in years. Nothing except silence. Tyler then knocked. He was holding a six-pack in one hand and tacos in the other, as if he knew I needed an excuse to let him go. On the porch, we sat. At first, he remained silent. Just handed me a drink and cracked it open. At last, he remarked, "Your mother has been phoning. She wants to make things right, everyone says." I questioned, glancing at him. "What should be fixed?" He gave a shrug. "She just stated that she wanted to speak. She claims that things went out of control and that she didn't want to hurt you." I posed the identical question to him that I had been asking myself. Did she ever acknowledge her true actions? Tyler took a moment to respond. Just sipped his beer one more. Then he declined. "Simply put, everything has gone too far. She also wants you to change your ways. Turn around." I couldn't get the statement out of my head the rest of the evening. No, it wasn't. We'd want to put this right. No, it wasn't. We've now realized how we let you down. It returned as if I had been the one who had strayed, as if I had just lost my path and had to get back into the fold. The fold where I paid the bills remained silent and allowed them to pretend as if nothing had occurred. They have no intention of fixing it. They were attempting to regain authority. I kept quiet with Tyler. He was aware of my position. He left the remaining tacos behind and nodded as if he had anticipated it. However, I witnessed something that struck in a different way that same evening. On Instagram, my sister shared a lengthy narrative. Nothing straightforward, only ambiguous statements concerning treachery and those who lose their sense of origin. My name was not mentioned by her. She was not required to. There were half of the remarks that were reciprocal, inquiring about her well-being. Her pals said things like, "You've done so much for people," in the other half. "Some people simply don't value it." I burst out laughing. After 5 years of supporting her online, she was now portraying herself as the victim of betrayal. My mother sent me an email 2 days later. Subject line, "Let's make this right." Something forced me to open it after I had nearly erased it without reading it. The message's body was brief. "This is not what I ever wanted. I've erred. Now I see that. We are still your family, though. Return home. Let's have a conversation. Let's make this right. You are loved by us. We pardon you." The final sentence. "We pardon you." As if I had excluded them from a birthday celebration. As if I were the one who shut them out of their own life or depleted their finances. As if I'd been given an opportunity and blown it. "No, I apologize. No, we were mistaken." It was only a soft-edged, nebulous implication that both sides had made equal mistakes, and that I just had to return and resume our conversation where we left off. They wanted me to make things simple for them once more. I thus didn't answer. Rather, I completed what I had begun. I checked all the accounts I had linked them to. Not only the ones I purchased, but also the ones in which my name, email address, or anything else was utilized. A gym account, a common Costco membership, and previous rental applications. 2 years ago, I helped them open, but I forgot. I distanced myself from everything. I removed every indication of my presence from their logistics, every connection that I had built that facilitated their lives. Lost. The letter then arrived. An actual, tangible letter arrived in the mail. Poor penmanship. 3 whole pages in blue ink. "Mom," she began as usual. "You are missed. You are loved by us. You are our son." The well-crafted apology followed. "If you feel excluded, I apologize. We never meant to do that." As though it hadn't been really deliberate. As though I simply misinterpreted. The following paragraph discussed how difficult things had been for them recently. That father was having financial difficulties. That there was instability in my sister's job. That they needed a little assistance to get back on course. Then the worst part. "We're prepared to pardon you, whenever you're prepared to return." I realized then that they were not going to change. Never, ever. They had no intention of making apologies. They desired the benefits to return. They wished to avoid the difficult phase, revert to the version of the relationship that worked best for them, and avoid taking responsibility. After folding the letter, I returned it to the envelope and threw it in the garbage. I made plans to travel out of state the next morning. Not a holiday. Something more extensive. A new beginning. I had been circling them for so long in the hopes that they would consider me more than just a convenience. But at last I realized the reality. I didn't need them to change, and they wouldn't. They were free to spin it whatever they pleased. They may claim that I overreacted, that I grew cold, or that I abandoned them, but I knew better. They will soon learn the true meaning of losing a loved one. I didn't care enough to explain it again, not because I wanted retribution anymore. I didn't say a thing. No farewell. No grandiose farewell. I just packed my belongings, shut off my phone, and spent 16 hours driving nonstop. Until I could hardly see the city that knew me and emptied me in the rearview mirror. I kept Tyler in the dark. It wasn't until the last day that I told my employer. I simply walked out. It was only a new state, not a crazy jump across the nation. For the first time in years, however, it seemed like a different world. Nobody was aware of my whereabouts. Nobody had any expectations of me. No one else's phone bill had my name on it. The emergency contact wasn't me. The fallback, the fixer. All I was Mike. I rented a modest apartment, obtained a job at a tiny IT company, and led a simple life. I prepared my own meals and watched whatever I wanted to see. Simply paid for my belongings. At first, the nighttime silence seemed odd, as if something were lacking. Then I understood what it was, though. The waiting. Nobody was requesting anything. No guilt trips, no ambiguous signals. No more being handled like a heartless ATM. After 3 weeks of the relocation, I didn't recognize the number that called me. I rang it out. Voicemail. My sister. Her voice was not one of rage. She sounded worn out. "I know you're probably not going to listen to this, but I'm at a loss for what to do," she stated. "Mom weeps nearly every day. Dad continues looking in the mailbox, but there isn't a letter there. Tell us you're still alive, please." I gave it 2 listens. I then removed it. Now they want tranquility. They still hadn't told me the one thing I needed to hear yet. They still sought my forgiveness. We were mistaken. Rather, they continued to talk about themselves, about their suffering, bewilderment, and regrets. What they did was never the point. Never about how I was brought up. I was used and thrown away. When I eventually stopped making things simple, they pretended to be astonished. They didn't miss who I was. They missed what I did. My dad sent me an email a few days later. There were just 2 lines. "I am aware that you have already decided. I honor that. Recognize that I was mistaken. All of us were. None of it was fair to you." I didn't immediately remove that one. I also didn't answer. After the initial perusal, I left it in my email, never to be opened again. Similar to an artwork at a museum, a remnant of the apology I finally heard after years of waiting. It's too late to make a difference. It's too late to make any changes. However, it did arrive. Too many individuals never even understand it. Then it really did go silent. The phone calls ceased. The messages ceased. Perhaps they finally got it. Perhaps they at last understood that love isn't truly love at all if it isn't accompanied by presence, respect, and effort. Eventually, Tyler discovered my whereabouts. When I opened the door when he knocked one weekend, he simply smiled and remarked, "So this is where peace resides now." I opened the door for him. We conversed. I told him everything I had been thinking, including the fact that I was no longer upset. Just got done. Even if I didn't despise them, I refused to return. I was unable to. He gave a nod. Then he remarked something that occasionally still crosses my mind. They never truly had you despite their constant claims to have lost you. All they had was access. He was correct, and that struck a deeper chord than any apology. They did not lose a sibling, a nephew, or a son. The part of me that accepted being ignored, used, and forgotten was gone, and there was nothing left for them to cling to once that version of me vanished. I now occasionally receive cards over the holidays. No address for return. "I was just thinking of you," signed by my parents. I never reply, but I also don't discard them. They are kept in a drawer beside me. I enjoy remembering how far I've come, not because I'm clinging. It's not always necessary to go back in order to forgive. Sometimes it just means advancing without bringing the burden with you. The bridge wasn't burned by me. I just made sure they were aware of my transgression. And I had no intention of going back. Story 3. Sister made a terrible accusation against me to keep her secret safe. I therefore lost everything until some text conversations discovered by her husband's private investigator made a huge difference. I'm a man of 33. I don't have a close connection with my parents or my sister Jenna, who is 31 years old. For many years, I have come to terms with the fact that we don't talk frequently. This gap has causes that stem from things that happened a long time ago. I have not received an invitation to or participated in any family get-togethers, including weddings, holidays, or other noteworthy occasions for over 10 years. Unspoken but obvious, this has been a mutual arrangement. Something changed recently. Last year, my sister Jenna and her husband Mark welcomed a boy into the world. I got an official invitation in the mail a few weeks ago. It was for the first birthday celebration of my nephew. It was a clear invitation from Mark. He once wrote me a thank you note for a wedding present I had mailed years before, so I recognize his handwriting. The invitation came as a surprise. To make sure I wasn't deceived, I read it many times. It was for a family gathering and was addressed to me. I thought about it for a few days before deciding to go. Maybe I reasoned enough time was over. Although I didn't anticipate a warm reception or an abrupt shift in our family dynamic, I felt that it was the appropriate thing to do. By issuing the invitation, Mark had made a gesture, and I thought I ought to return the favor. I placed an internet order for a collection of vintage children's books as a present for my nephew. In addition, I requested and was granted a day off from work. Since I didn't see the necessity, I didn't tell anyone about the invitation. About a week before the party was supposed to happen, I just got ready to go. My mother called me on the phone. It's been years since we last chatted on the phone. She started talking without using the customary pleasantries after I responded. Her voice was straightforward and bland. She informed me that I had been sent the wrong invitation. She clarified that Jenna had not been consulted before Mark emailed it. According to her, Jenna didn't feel comfortable with me attending the party. My mother went on to say that it would be best for everyone if I didn't go since my presence would cause conflict. In order to avoid any embarrassing situations on the day of the party, she said that she was phoning me. Her statements were forceful, yet she wasn't shouting or passionate. She didn't ask. She was telling me what was going on. Without interjecting, I paid attention to what she had to say. I didn't challenge her or fight after she was done. "I understand," I answered. I then hung up the phone. I immediately canceled my order on the website where I had placed the present order. The next day, the reimbursement was processed. I then accessed the contact list on my phone. I located and banned my mother's phone number. I then used the same procedure with Jenna's and my father's numbers. I was not upset. I simply had the impression that there was nothing more to say once the last line had been drawn. My father started sending me emails a few days later. His initial email was brief and unclear, inquiring as to why his calls were not connecting. He sent me another one when I didn't respond. According to what he stated, my mother informed him that I was no longer answering their calls. He said that I was acting like a child and treating my mother in an unnecessary manner. She was only attempting to mediate the conflict and avert a challenging circumstance, he said. He claimed that I had overreacted when I blocked them and that my actions were the cause of our family's disintegration. He demanded that I unblock their numbers right now and contact my mother to apologize for my aggressive behavior as he concluded the email. I have not and will not respond to any of his emails. They are now in a different folder in my email. The problem is straightforward, in my opinion. I am clearly not welcome, they stated. By banning their phones, I've agreed to their perspective. All I'm doing is cleaning up the current separation. I don't see the use in keeping in touch with those who deliberately keep me out of the family. They seem to think that I should be at their disposal anytime they want me to be, but that when they don't want me around, I should be invisible. Since I disagree with these terms, I am cutting off my parents and formally and permanently severing our long-standing estrangement. Update 1. I would want to express my gratitude to everyone who has left comments and shared their opinions. Although NTA appears to be the general view, many have noted that there is undoubtedly more to this story. They're right. Since I was judged on my recent behavior rather than my background, I did not give the entire history in my initial post. I can see, though, why people want further details in order to comprehend the circumstances. I'll give you that background immediately. I'm not trying to get your compassion. All I want to do is provide the facts as they happened. This dates back to my 18th birthday, which was 15 years ago. Jenna, my sister, was 16 at the time. She became quite secretive. She was always sending texts on her phone and would remain out late. At first, I didn't give it much thought, but I soon found out that she was seeing a man who was significantly older than her. He was maybe 21 or 22. I knew that our parents, who were quite strict, would not approve of this connection at all. I had very little part in this. My sister was not born to me. I was occupied with my own affairs, preparing to enroll in college in the autumn and working a part-time job to save money. I did bring it up to her once. I advised her to exercise caution because she was taking a significant risk. Since I believed it was her life and her choice, I refrained from threatening to notify our parents. But when I got home from work one evening, my role was altered. She was attempting to get back into the home through a window when I discovered her, which was after midnight. That's when I approached her. I wasn't noisy or combative. I informed her that she could not keep lying to our parents on this level and that her actions were becoming hazardous. I warned her that I would have to inform them about her lover unless she did. I worried about her security. I issued a command to her. I informed her that she had till the end of the weekend to speak with them. On Sunday night, if she didn't, I would tell them what I knew. As her elder brother, I believed I was doing the proper course of action. The weekend arrived and ended. Sunday afternoon, she didn't talk to them. I was invited to join my parents in the living room. Both of them were pale and grave. Beside them on the couch sat Jenna. She had been in tears. Jenna told them something really important according to my father. Then according to my mother, Jenna had made a horrible charge against me. My sister had informed them that I had been sexually assaulting her for years while she was staring at the floor. I was stunned. I disputed everything right away. I made an effort to inform them of the circumstances. I informed them of my ultimatum to her and of her hidden boyfriend. I said that she was doing this to discredit me and divert their attention from her own secrets, making them doubt what I said. They would not listen. My remarks didn't appear to make a difference. My father informed me that I was ill and my mother began to cry. They didn't think I was real. They had full faith in her. They instructed me to get to my room, gather my most important possessions, and depart from their home. They told me that they had already contacted the police after I had done so. My life was completely destroyed as a result. One day, I was a high school student at the age of 18, and the following day, an accused person fell. Since she was a juvenile and I was legally an adult, I was arrested that night. I didn't have the system on my side. There was no support from my family. I was forced to use a public attorney. Her statement versus mine became the crux of the argument. Although there was no tangible proof to back up her assertion, there was also no proof to refute it. Her testimony in court served as the foundation for the entire case. She made a really convincing witness. She sobbed. She gave a thorough, made-up account of abuse. The prosecution presented it as an attack on her character when my counsel attempted to raise her friendship with the older man as a potential reason for the deception. A quintessential victim-blaming scenario. I appeared much more guilty as a result. I had testimony against myself from my own parents. They talked about how, in the months before the accusation, my demeanor had altered, becoming reclusive and moody. They saw my typical adolescent conduct as an indication of guilt. Since they wanted to believe her narrative, they sold it. In the end, I was found guilty of a lesser felony sex violation, but not guilty of the most severe allegation. Most importantly, the judge ordered me to register as a sex offender and sentenced me to several years of probation. I have to comply with the registration requirement everywhere. I was unable to obtain school loans, thus my plans for college were canceled. It became quite hard to find a work. Telling the truth generally ended the conversation when most applications inquired if I had a criminal conviction. It was equally difficult to find a home. With limitations on my ability to reside near playgrounds, parks, or schools, I was required to frequently report to the local police station for 5 years. I needed to let them know my address, my workplace, my car, any accounts I utilized online. Law enforcement had access to every detail of my life. My whole family stopped talking to me after the trial. Aunts, uncles, relatives, grandparents. I seemed to have vanished from the world. I completed my probationary period. I was on the registry for the full 5 years. I discovered how to lead a very alone and peaceful existence. I was able to get employment at a warehouse with a less rigorous background check. I located an apartment in a neighborhood that complies. It was a modest, independent existence that I created for myself. I never again tried to get in touch with my relatives. The current state of affairs is the result of this history. This explains why it was so startling to be invited to a child's birthday celebration. That's also why it wasn't shocking to be turned down. I don't feel bad about banning their numbers because of this. There is no connection left to save, in my opinion. It's been a long time since there was one. In the second update, something happened that I never would have predicted. I got a call from an unknown number a few days after I published my most recent update. As I always do with unknown numbers, my immediate reaction was to ignore it, but for some reason, I responded. The voice of the man on the other end of the telephone sounded professional. As a private investigator, he identified himself. My thoughts quickly turned pessimistic. I thought he had been recruited by my parents maybe to discover a new technique to annoy me or to get information that they might use against me. I was about to end the call. I informed him that I had no desire to talk to him. "Please just give me a minute," he responded hastily. "Your folks do not employ me. Mark hired me." The husband of your sister, I was halted by that. It was illogical. Why would my sister's husband contact me after hiring a private investigator? The investigator appeared to get my perplexity. "Mark hired me a few months ago," he stated. Mark's worries regarding Gina's actions during their marriage had grown. "She has a pattern of dishonesty," he said. "She would make up complex falsehoods about little matters." Her fury was prone to abrupt, violent outbursts. Their heated, dramatic disputes would appear to start at any time. Mark sensed that something was seriously off, but he was unable to pinpoint the issue. The private investigator clarified that his first task was to thoroughly investigate Gina's past and investigate some of her social and financial activities. At the time, Mark's main worry was that she may be cheating. The investigator fulfilled his duties. He explored every aspect of her life, past and current. His research, of course, brought him to the events that took place when she was 16. The charge that has long characterized my life. The plot takes a turn at this point that I still find hard to comprehend. The investigator informed me that he had recovered material from an old cloud storage account that Gina had used as a teenager, but had long since forgotten about as part of his job in digital forensics. Archives of previous communication logs from an instant messaging software she and her pals used in the past are kept in this cloud account. He had discovered a certain dialogue. Gina and her then best buddy were involved. The exchange was time-stamped. Over the period of the 3 days that passed between my ultimatum and her complaint to her parents, it happened. The investigator then started reading me passages from these messages over the phone. Silently, I listened. Jenny was panicking in her mails. I learned about her previous relationship she wrote to her pal. She feared that her life would be destroyed and that I would inform our parents. She was asked by her friend what she intended to do. Jenny gave a direct response. She stated that she needed to take a significant step that would guarantee our parents would never hear a word I said. She had to turn me against her will. Then, with frightening precision, she outlined her strategy. "I've been touching her," she informed her buddy, "and she's going to tell our parents." It was the ideal strategy, she said. It would solve our problem, she thought, by removing me from the home and from her life, and it was an allegation so terrible that no one would ever dispute her. She made it clear in her writing that doing this would protect her covert relationship. The investigator read these passages to me and then informed me that a few days prior, he had given Mark his full findings, including the whole transcripts of these communications. Mark was absolutely devastated, he added. He and Jennifer had been wed for several years. Together, they have a kid. His entire perception of his wife had been based on false information. Mark wanted to talk to me personally, the investigator added. He added that Mark wanted to assist and was sincerely sorry for what had transpired. He encouraged me to call Mark and provided me his personal mobile number. After hanging up with the investigator, I sat silently for a while. There was plenty to process. An hour or so later, I made the decision to contact the number he provided. During the first ring, Mark responded. He spoke in a thick, strained voice. "I'm so sorry," was the first thing he said. He said it again and again. He claimed to know nothing about any of it. He claimed that he had always thought there was something strange about her history. When he attempted to bring it up, Jenna would get very defensive and upset. He had thus learnt to refrain from inquiring. He assured me he trusted me without hesitation. He also used an invitation to a birthday celebration to clarify the circumstances. He said that he sent it because he wanted to attempt to open a door, even if just a small one, and he had a gut feeling that something was up with the family's account of me. Jenna had a total breakdown when she discovered that he had mailed it. For hours, she yelled at him, threatening to leave him and take their son if he ever attempted to get in touch with me again. He decided to engage the private investigator as a result of the incident. The call went on for over half an hour. He concluded by offering to forward the complete communication transcripts to me along with any more evidence the investigator had discovered. In order to eventually cleanse my name, he promised to testify on my behalf and help me in every other manner he could. I stopped to consider it. Update 3. Since I spoke with Mark, things have moved quickly and decisively. As promised, he sent me a thorough report from the private investigator, as well as the full, unredacted transcripts of Jenny's discussions via email. It felt unreal to read the messages all the way through. For me, it wasn't as emotional as one might anticipate. Neither sadness nor rage was present. It was only a chilly affirmation of what I had understood for 15 years. The evidence was this. A day later, I got another call from Mark. He admitted to me that he had spoken to Jenna. He told me about the scene. He had sat her down and shown her printed copies of the messages after waiting for their kid to be asleep. Her first response, he claimed, was denial. She said he had forged the papers. She yelled that he and I were planning to destroy her life. She went into a frenzy. Mark claimed that instead of responding to her charges, he stayed composed and only cited the evidence. Her approach changed when it became evident that her denials and wrath were ineffective. She fell. She started crying hysterically and revealed everything through her tears. She said that it was all a lie. She attempted to defend her behavior by claiming that she was only a 16-year-old girl who was afraid and did not want to get into trouble. She said that she was unaware of the repercussions of her deception. Her confession, according to Mark, felt more like a last-ditch effort to win his compassion than it did like sincere regret. That was not the end of the talk. When Mark informed her that he could no longer be her husband, things became more heated. She became aggressive. Then she struck and scratched at him in a violent assault. To prevent her from injuring herself or him any further, he had to physically restrain her. He left the room, shut himself in their home office, and contacted his lawyer once she had worn herself out. He formally filed for divorce the next morning. In order to obtain temporary exclusive custody of their kid, he also requested an emergency order. The consequences swiftly spread with accusations that Jenny was an unfit parent due to her violent volatility history of deception and admissions. Mark sent our parents the whole report from the investigators, including the message transcripts in what he said was an essential step for complete responsibility and openness. Their response did not take long. My phone was restricted, but my father kept calling. My folks showed up to my apartment complex the next day. I'm not sure how they discovered my address, but I figured it was made feasible by the public data from the sex offender list I was on. I was in my house. They stood in the lobby and began talking loudly at my door after buzzing my apartment number for a few minutes without getting a response. My mom was in tears. Through the door, her remarks were audible. She wasn't sobbing for me or the 15 years of my life that had been taken from me. Her tears were for Jenna. She lamented the wreck Jenna's life had now become. She pleaded with me to speak with Mark through the door. She hoped that I would persuade him to halt the divorce process. She indicated that in order for our family to start healing, I needed to find it in my heart to forgive Jenna. It was a ridiculous concept. They wanted me, the one who was deceived, to make up for the harm that its exposure had caused. I didn't answer. I waited quietly while sitting on my couch. They eventually gave up and departed after about an hour. After they left, I called someone. I got in touch with a reputable attorney who focuses in unjust convictions. The next day I met with him. I gave him all the proof that Mark had forwarded to me. After carefully going over everything he told me, my lawyer was extremely certain that we had a compelling case to have my conviction officially overturned. To do so, the legal process has already started. Neither my sister nor my parents have heard a word from me. The last update. Several months have passed since my previous update. Since many things have been resolved, I think I should write one more post to wrap up this chapter. After this, there won't be any more updates because the tale is over. Legally speaking, everything went according to my lawyer's predictions. In light of the new information, we asked the court to overturn my conviction. After reviewing the matter, the prosecutor's office did not object to our motion. Jenna's texts included an unquestionable confession. A hearing was held, although it was short. I went, but I didn't have to say anything. The court formally revoked the decision against me and reversed the conviction. The sex offender register no longer has my name on it. The offense for which I was found guilty is no longer legally on my record. It seems to have never occurred. Everything in Jenna's life has altered. Mark and she had a final divorce. Mark was given primary physical and legal custody of their son as part of the settlement based on the proof of her actions. Jenna's rights to supervised visits are restricted. Since he believes he owes me that, Mark keeps me updated from a distance. According to him, Jenna is undergoing intense therapy, but she still places the responsibility for her predicament on others rather than herself. My parents' condition has also come to the conclusion that they are. Mark has assured me that he is totally committed to helping Jenna. Her current living expenditures and legal fights have consumed a large portion of their savings. For me, my life goes on. There hasn't been any catharsis, even though I am legally free from the conviction that has followed me for 15 years. When the judge's gavel dropped, there was no joy. I didn't experience a rush of relief. The past cannot be forgotten. I was on the register and on probation for years. There are no more updates to provide anyhow. I appreciate all of the people that have read this. Story 4. Like a loaded rifle, the invoice lay in my inbox. A weekend stay at my own beach cottage costs $650. Before the truth set in, I had to read it 3 times. In reality, I was being charged rent on a property by my sister. I had bought it for around $2 million. My name is Helen, and I was duped by the worst scammer of my life 8 years ago. From my own blood and flesh, not from outsiders. It will be the house of our dreams. Brooke had murmured, her eyes glistening with that recognizable excitement that usually came before a request for cash. We were seated in our favorite cafe, the same one where 5 years prior she had persuaded me to provide funding for the opening of her yoga studio. A location where everyone can get together, create memories, and see the children's development. I can already feel the usual pull of duty as I mix my coffee. Brooke, it's a significant investment. We'll all contribute. I can do the upkeep with Julian. Landscape maintenance will be handled by Nestor. Frankie has already begun to plan the interior design. Mom is ecstatic. She has always desired a home near the sea. Don't you know I ought to have recognized the warning signs? I should have seen that no one brought up the topic of genuine money donations. That's the problem with familial manipulation, though. Enough truth is woven throughout it to make the lies seem acceptable. I signed the documents 3 months later. It was a beautiful seaside home. Jolie Brooks's daughter instantly claimed the pool, 4 bedrooms, and views of the ocean. Everyone was present to celebrate bursting champagne and planning elaborate family get-togethers. In a tearful voice, my mother, Scarlett, gave a toast thanking Helen for making it possible. The last time I felt really involved was then. The justifications began modestly. Oh, we assumed you wouldn't want to attend Memorial Day. You're constantly preoccupied with your job or Jolie's pals. Months earlier, the home was reserved for spring break. Has Brooke not informed you? I told myself it was okay and immersed myself in my real estate business. Family members share. Family is aware. I wanted to utilize the beach home for next weekend until last week, when I finally made my mind known. It was just for 2 days that I texted Brooke. The invoice showed up 3 hours later. $650 for a room rental, $100 for cleaning. $200 is the security deposit. It buzzed on my phone. Brooke texted, "We must maintain equity. When using the residence, each person pays their portion." I retrieved my financial documents. Every property tax bill, insurance premium, and mortgage payment was paid out of my account. Last summer, the new deck nester shocked everyone by using my credit card to pay for a professional cleaning service. My weekly subscription fare was something Brooke insisted on. To my empty home office, I said. The term had an ashy flavor. Once more, my phone buzzed. A group chat message from this Saturday's pool party at Brooke Beach House. Julie's jubilation with her swim team. Everyone is welcome. Quick fire reactions underneath it. We're in, Frankie. I am bringing my well-known quack Nestle. The time was ideal. Julian recently acquired a new barbecue. I wasn't specifically uninvited, Mom. I wasn't. They just discovered that the simplest way to keep me out without having to play the villain was to schedule things around my important customer appointments. I started typing a reply to Brooke's invoice after opening my laptop. I ran my fingers over the keys. I swallowed my pride of being the trustworthy and responsible person for 8 years. The one you could always rely on to get it. Brooke texted again. If you wish to utilize the residence, remember to provide the money before Friday. We're making an effort to maintain professionalism. Professional, huh? Without replying, I grabbed my phone and shut down my laptop. I should have phoned that number years ago. I started to have some concerns about the ownership arrangement Brooke had said would safeguard everyone once my old college friend Remington rose to prominence as one of the city's leading real estate lawyers. Ram, hello? When he picked up, I said, "Do you recall the predicament I found myself in at the beach house? I believe it's time for us to examine the documents I signed more closely." He answered right away. "I wanted to know when you will give me a call to discuss it." "You're being silly, Helen." My phone crackled with Brooke's voice. "Speaker, families split expenses in this way. Each of us makes a contribution." Spreadsheets littered my kitchen counter, resembling the evidence of a murder scene. "Participate. Brooke, I've covered everything. Everything. That is untrue." Using the credit card I provided him for urgent repairs, Julian just purchased a new grill. "I cut you off. I've got the statement here." After a brief silence, Brooks's tone changed to the sugary sweetness she used to control our mother. "I guess you're just stressed out from work, sweetie. You've always had a strong passion for money. Recall what your father used to say." "Don't." My voice broke. "You dare not utilize Dad at this time." However, I did recall the 3 days before to his death from cancer. Dad had drew me in his hand, shaking as he held my hand. "Helen, tell me you'll keep an eye out for them. Don't allow them, though." Then, without completing the statement, he had begun to cough. I had believed for years that he wished to keep them from struggling. I now questioned whether he had been warning me about anything else. "Look, Brookside, we may talk about a family discount if the rental price is too high. For hundreds, perhaps." I began my accounting program. Since we purchased the house, I have covered 94% of all costs. That amounts to $1.7 million. "Brooke, where is your contribution? We take care of the planning, upkeep, and psychological strain of keeping everyone together. Helen family is something that cannot be valued. It seems like they were able to and accomplished $650 worth." Before she could answer, I hung up and said I have to leave. Nestor recalls, my phone lit up with text messages right away. "Why you must make money, the center of everything." Negative vibes. Mom called Brooke in tears. "How could you have so irritated her? We must discuss, Frankie girl. You're not this person. They were all blocked by me." An email from Remington pinged my machine. 20 minutes to meet. I brought coffee and discovered something fascinating in those documents from 2015. After 15 minutes, I entered Remington's office. Since college, he had not changed much. The same wire-rimmed spectacles. He had the same tendency to touch his pen when he got news. Now he was tapping. Sliding a coffee over his desk, he said, "Are you looking for the good news or the truly excellent news?" "The news is excellent." He produced a heavy folder. "Do you recall Brooke's insistence that the beach home be placed in an LLC for everyone's protection?" I gave a nod. According to her, it would protect us all from liability concerns in the event that someone was injured on the property. "Okay," Remington smiled. "I just went over the operating agreement for 3 hours. Do you have a dominating interest, Helen complete control over interest? What Brooke said that we were all partners on an equal footing. You are the sole member with voting rights on paper. They have no ownership investment and are categorized as non-voting members. In essence, they have absolutely no legal claim to the property." He reclined. "It's possible that your sister didn't read the paperwork. Or I wouldn't, she believed." I completed a cold. I felt a wave of clarity. She didn't think I would check. She assumed I would simply continue to pay indefinitely. The tapping of Remington's pen ceased. "There's more. They made such improvements last summer. As the governing member, they need your written consent in order to operate legally. In English, they would have officially committed property conversion without it. REM, Helen, they took from you. I can also demonstrate it." I gazed at the documents. Resentment that has been accumulated over years solidifies into something more difficult. Colder. What choices do I have? You have the legal right to evict them, sue them for damages, or do both. You own the property. They are not entitled to it. He hesitated. They are your family, though. What are you interested in doing? A fresh message from my niece. Jolie buzzed through my phone. Well done, Aunt Helen, for making Mom weep. Fortunately, your poisonous energy won't be present at this weekend's pool party. I presented the text to Remington. How quickly can you draft eviction documents? His hand was already on his laptop. Let me have 1 hour. However, Helen. Over the screen, his gaze locked with me. Are you certain you're prepared for the consequences? Dad's incomplete admonition crossed my mind. About the envoys sitting in my inbox like a declaration of war about 8 years of exclusion encased in familial duty. REM, they're not my family. Simply put, they have been robbing me for the past 8 years. I straightened my jacket and got to my feet. I also want my home returned. The seaside mansion has changed appearance. Each immaculate window and meticulously tended flower bed symbolized an additional money that they had taken from me. Across the street, I sat in my car and observed Nestor's dilapidated van parked in the driveway. As Remington went over our plan, he shuffled papers and said, "Everything is filed. However, we want written proof that they complied with a legitimate request for access. Ask to stay tonight if you can." I took out my phone and sent a message. I had practiced for a dozen times. I'm outdoors. I want to spend the weekend here. My home. It's my right. The reaction was instantaneous. The pool's splashing noises ceased. Moving behind the glass are figures. My phone exploded. Nestor, we're having a private party, so it's unfortunate timing. Jolie, are you really following us at this very moment? Brooke, you're acting inappropriately, Helen. We'll talk about this later. I got out of my vehicle. Remington follows closely, carrying his suitcase. From the backyard came the sound of music. My backyard. We were getting close to the front entrance. I make use of my key, which they still haven't been able to take away. The backyard site was just what I had anticipated. Brooke was holding court near the new grill that I had supposedly purchased. Jolie and her friends were dispersed over the deck, and Nestor was floating on the pool lounger. What did you not grasp about the private gathering? Brooke got up. She spoke with the same tone of authority that she had been using to manipulate me for years. It makes perfect sense, I answered. Remington? Behind me, a comforting presence. I get it. I'm spending the weekend at my place. Water trickling down the pricey deck tiles. Jolie came out of the pool. You're so embarrassing, my God. Brooke cautioned. Nobody wants you here, Jolie. But her faint grin gave me the impression that she was okay with her daughter's brutality. Nestor paddled to the edge of the pool. Right now, Helen, your energy is seriously upsetting our tranquility. Perhaps you ought to locate your center and practice meditation. My center. They flinched at the piercing sounds of my laughter. I paid to see my family throw a party, but they didn't bother to invite me yet. My center is right here in this house. You're too busy all the time, Brooke yelled. Always in operation. Constantly calculating money rather than creating memories. Calculating the amount of money. I took out my phone and launched the banking app. Do you mean the $4,000 you spent on pool upkeep last month? Or the $8,000 for the new furnishings you kept me in the dark about? That was an essential cost. Or perhaps, I went on raising my voice, the $20,000 you took out of my emergency fund for Jolie's 16th birthday, the one you said you would pay back. There was silence on the pool deck. Jolie's pals were uneasy as well. Brooke snarled, "You're creating a scene." No, I answered softly. I have a point. I looked at Remington. Present them. He opened his briefcase and stepped forward. I'm the lawyer for Mrs. Lynch. She owns the only controlling stake in this property according to the papers I have here. She must legally approve all changes, renovations, and occupancy choices. Nestor, the lawyer, scurried from the pool. This isn't very wise of you, Helen. Hold on, I extended my hand. Simply stop. The guilt trips are over. The manipulation is complete. It's all finished. I looked across at Brooke. You wished to maintain a professional demeanor. All right, let's act like professionals. I was given a stack of documents by Remington. I placed them on a pool chair and observed the writing becoming blurred by water stains. What is this? The top sheet was picked up by Brooke. Her face was going pale. Records of every dime you have stolen from me over the last 8 years, every unapproved alteration, and every illegal expense. I looked her in the eyes, along with an invoice. You can't be serious, she muttered, because we're all about fair shares now. You have 24 hours to remove your personal items. I turned to go, then came to a standstill. Jolie and O, you're floating in a meditation pool. I also paid for that. Savor it while you can. I heard the commotion rising behind me as I walked away. Jolie's theatrical sobbing, Nestor's spiritual platitudes, and Brooke's strident complaints. However, their voices had no influence over me for the first time in years. As we arrived at the car, Remington remarked, "That went well?" I turned to face the home. One final time in my place? No, it didn't, but everything went according to plan. My mother's message chimed on my phone. Your dad would be really embarrassed. I grinned, turned off my phone, and started my car. Daddy attempted to warn me about the power of familial devotion. He would be pleased. I would at last learn how to defend myself. The motel room seemed empty and antiseptic. However, it was preferable than returning home. I launched my laptop and accessed the dashboard of the beach house's smart home, which I had paid for but had neglected to access. A glimmer of life came to the security cameras. Of course, they were still there. With her phone clamped to her ear, Brooke was pacing the living room. Most likely, planning his next spiritual guilt trip, Nestor was stretched out on my couch. My hardwood floors had damp tracks from Jolie and her pals moving the celebration indoors. I turned up the music. Brooke was saying, "She's gone crazy. You don't understand, Mama. She brought a lawyer. A real lawyer indeed." A pause. Naturally. Before we signed the documents, I read them. I'm not a moron. I grinned. I allowed them to believe that I was the foolish, unsophisticated one for 8 years. The one who was always compromising. No more. Remington texted me and my phone lighted up. Everything has been filed. The Saturday lockdown was verified by the sheriff's office. Are you certain about this? Via the cameras, I saw Jolie knock over a wine glass, causing crimson liquid to spill across the white carpet. No one went to tidy things up. In the days that followed, I'm positive I texted back. Using my second monitor, I kept the security feeds open while working from the hotel. When I eventually figured out the plot twist, it was like watching a reality show. They threw a larger celebration on Wednesday, seemingly in defiance of my orders. After 2 hours, Brooke's lawyer, whom she had brought in on Thursday, exited with a disappointed expression. Friday. They got to work relocating items, costly items, my belongings. I grabbed my phone. Hi there, law enforcement. I want to report that there is theft occurring on my property. The cops showed up in 20 minutes. Through the cameras, I saw Brooke's attempts to win them over and her expression change as they demanded ownership documentation. We are family, though. As if it clarified everything, she continued. They forced them to replace everything. Every item of furniture and picture that has been borrowed. I kept the video. I forwarded it to Remington. That evening, I went to the controls for my smart home. Raise the temperature to 80 degrees. The Wi-Fi password has been changed. All lights should be set to slowly strobe. Enough to be a pain. Little trivial stuff. However, it was satisfying to remind them of my existence after 8 years of being invisible. My phone rang 3 in the morning. Nestor. It is a haunted mansion, he mumbled, obviously intoxicated. Negative energy permeates everything. The ghosts are upset. No, I interrupted. I'm upset. I'm not a spirit either. The owner is me. Leave my house. I saw them pack on Friday night and saw Brooke tell Jolie to snap photos of each room for proof. What is the evidence? how they kept up a house that they had taken from me. 3 years ago, on my 35th birthday, a recollection came to me. In an attempt to surprise them, I drove to the beach home. Everyone was there to take pictures of the family on the deck. They posed and giggled while I watched through the window in the driveway. When Brooke finally saw me, she gasped, "Oh, Helen, we weren't expecting you. You're constantly very occupied." I was never included in the pictures. A slew of texts rang on my phone. "You're making a big mistake, Brooke. The cosmos will never forget this betrayal, Nestor." Sister. "My Helen, please. Let's discuss this as if we were family." "I despise you, Jolie. I genuinely despise you." For the final time, I launched the smart home app. Put a single message on repeat on all of the TVs. "Tomorrow, checkout is at 12 Ilway." I then typed a single answer to each of them. "Families don't take from one another. At the lockout, see you." Tired yet at ease, I shut down my laptop and reclined in my hotel chair. The sheriff would show up tomorrow. They would finally know what it was like to be shut out tomorrow. It was the final buzzing of my phone. A message from an unidentified number. "I just learned of the seaside house's fate. All set to discuss Brooke's actions from 8 years ago." I recognized the area code and froze. My old best buddy Aubrey vanished after that business transaction with Brooke went awry. I had never discovered the one secret. With my fingers hanging over the keyboard, I gazed at the message. "Some realities you believe you're prepared for, until they're looking directly at you." I typed back after the lockout tomorrow. I had to evict a family first. Then, at last, I would discover the full extent of Brooke's treachery. At precisely noon, the sheriff's cruiser arrived behind my vehicle. I continued to act as though my family owned the house as I observed them through the windows of the living room. "I'm still not sure I'll follow through. Are you ready?" "With the last piece of paper in hand?" Remington inquired. I gave a nod, and we walked together to the front door. The locksmith followed by the sheriff, a kind-eyed woman with a no-nonsense attitude. Before we could knock, the door opened. Helen Brooke stood there looking stunning in her luxury gown, as if she were welcoming visitors to one of her charity events. She gave a strained smile. "We can talk about this in private, like family, surely." The sheriff shouted, "Mom, get out of the way. A court order is in effect." The scene inside was just what I had anticipated. Julian was pacing beside the hearth. Nestor was sitting on the floor, cross-legged, as if he were meditating. Mom sobs quietly on the sofa. Jolie was shooting everything on her phone while standing at the top of the steps. "This is happening on TikTok," she said. "Everyone will witness your monstrous nature." Surprised at how steady my voice sounded, I responded, "Go ahead. Prove to them that you were able to live in a house for 8 years without spending a single penny. That will definitely go viral." As the sheriff read the order, the locksmith began to work on the front door. I saw their expressions as reality set in. "The LLC, however," Brooke stumbled. Each of us signed. Remington moved forward. "I have the documents. You actually gave up your right to vote, Mrs. Wallace. Since the beginning, your sister has been the only one in charge. This is the documentation. If you want to go over it again." A flush ran down Brooke's cheeks. I saw real dread in her eyes for the first time in my life. "This is not possible." Julian's voice trembled when he finally spoke. "We are entitled to certain rights." "No," silently I said. "Actually, you don't." Mom got to her feet, tears running down her cheeks. "Please consider the impact this will have on the family, Helen. It has been on my mind for 8 years. I haven't considered anything else." I looked over at the sheriff. "They have half an hour to gather necessary personal belongings. Next week, everything else can be claimed under appropriate supervision." Nestor opened his eyes and said, "This is karma. You will be held accountable by the cosmos for this bad energy." "Karma," I chuckled. "Karma is observing all of you when you ultimately face the repercussions. As you realize that every signature document and legal detail you believed you could overlook is coming back to punish you, karma is standing here. 15 minutes. the sheriff declared. Like frightened birds, they dispersed, snatching gadgets and pictures. Jody slammed the door behind her as she raced to her room. Like she was viewing a stranger, Brooke remained motionless and gazed at me. "The trust fund," she muttered. "What did Aubrey tell you?" "Later, we'll talk about that," I interrupted her. Much later. After completing the doors, the locksmith gave me new keys. No music compared to the sound of them jingling in my hand. 5 minutes. Mom grabbed my arm and tried one final time. "This is not what your father would have wanted." I took her hand away gently. "My father attempted to warn me about all of you. I simply didn't get it till now." At last, they were standing on the driveway with a depressing assortment of hurriedly packed suitcases at their feet. While the locksmith changed the garage code, the sheriff put the last notice on the door. Brooke responded, "This isn't over," but her voice was weak. "Isn't it? It really is," I said. Nestor was in his van, and they departed one by one. Jolie in their SUV with Julian, Mom in her car. Last seen standing near her vehicle was Brooke. Her cheekbones were streaked with mascara. "Where is your family?" It was her final attempt. "No," I said. "You are simply individuals who used someone who genuinely desired a family." For 8 years, she allowed herself to be robbed from. I saw them go, their vehicles vanishing around the bend. With a courteous gesture, the sheriff departed. After giving me a shoulder squeeze, Remington went to his vehicle. I've been holding my breath for 8 years, and now I'm standing by myself in my driveway. It buzzed on my phone. Aubrey watched them go again. "I'm prepared to give you the truth about that trust money." I glanced at my home. Mine, really. And typed back now. "Come on over. I need to learn everything now." The truth was on the way, and I wasn't scared of it for the first time. I had everything to gain and nothing left to lose. I entered my empty house, shut the door, and listened to the lovely sound of stillness. Aubrey's appearance was identical to that of 8 years ago. She even twisted her silver rings nervously. We watched the waves crashing toward the coast from my recently recovered terrace. With a coffee mug in her hand, she continued, "I should have told you sooner. I simply couldn't handle it. Couldn't confront you. Now tell me." She produced a folder that looked as if she had carried it for years. "Do you recall that investing opportunity Brooke gave us, the one that will treble our earnings according to her?" I recalled that it was meant to be a given. 3-state chain of upscale stores. Brooke had been so passionate and compelling. "She need starting funding," Aubrey went on. "For the first investment, you allowed her access to your trust money." I answered, "I put in my inheritance and it failed." "Businesses constantly fail." Aubrey gave a sour laugh. "It didn't exist, Helen." She laid down papers on the table. No vendors, no stores, and no contracts existed. Just hollow promises and a ton of fancy papers. As I took up the papers, my hands trembled. Wire transactions and bank statements, all of which lead to accounts abroad. Everything was taken by her. Aubrey's tone faltered. "My whole inheritance. But you. The true objective was you. She didn't just steal your money." "What are you saying?" "She obtained personal loans using your trust fund as security. Enormous loans. She threatened to blame me for the scam when I caught on and challenged her. Said that she would give the impression that we had planned it jointly." Suddenly, the wind from the ocean was frigid. "What is the amount?" "Nearly all of it. The buying of the seaside cottage." It was more than just securing a place for the family to vacation. She needed to conceal the missing funds and present them as a valid investment. My coffee cup slammed against the table. "She insisted on papers and an LLC structure that would allow her to control your assets without creating a paper trail. However, she made a mistake. Become careless with the legal paperwork. I got it from her." I muttered, accidentally controlling curiosity. It was the only thing that didn't work out in her plan. Aubrey grabbed my hand as she stretched across the table. "I've been gathering evidence and constructing a case for 8 years. I realized it was time when I learned about the eviction." My phone shattered and buzzed. Mom is hospitalized. Panic attack brought on by stress. I hope all is well with you. I displayed the message to Aubrey. More manipulation, she said. They are only capable of that. There was another text. Frankie simply listened to everything. We must speak. I never saw any documentation, even though Brooke offered me a portion of the business. How many more, Aubrey was asked. How many individuals did she defraud? Too many, however, you were the main goal. The ideal cover for fraud is family. Who would question their own sister? I got up and moved toward the railing below. In the midday sun, the pool gleamed. I paid for the pool twice, both once via the beach house upkeep expenses and once through my trust money. I said I want to file charges. Ahead of you already. Aubrey took out another piece of paper. A federal investigator has been collaborating with me. For months, they have been constructing a case. All they needed was someone to initiate contact. The expulsion. She gave a nod. You met their needs precisely. Show that you are the owner of the property. Create unambiguous fraud documents. When you're ready, they're prepared to move. Once more, my phone buzzed. The spirits informed me that you had a sinister scheme, Nestor. Sister, don't allow hatred to contaminate your spirit. It sounded more like a sob than a chuckle. His spiritual revelations were always timed perfectly. I stood at the railing with Helen Aubrey. I apologize for my disappearance. I believed that by keeping my distance, I was protecting you, collecting evidence in silence. I should have put my faith in you to tell the truth. The incorrect sister was trusted by both of us. My phone was humming with family texts inside. Actually, I had never had, attempting to shame me into keeping quiet. But quiet was no longer an option. I looked across at Aubrey. Give your investigator a call. Inform them that I'm prepared to speak. After taking out her phone, she hesitated. You are aware that this will ruin them, not only Brooke. Each and every one. Anyone who knew but said nothing. I reflected on my father's incomplete warning, my 8 years of isolation, and all the family memories I had paid for but never experienced. They ruined themselves. They just didn't anticipate any repercussions, I replied. Aubrey was on the phone. Overlooking the water, I saw the sunset. Formal statements from federal agents and the ultimate dismantling of my family's meticulously crafted falsehoods would await us tomorrow. For the first time in 8 years, however, I felt free to breathe in my own home tonight. It was daybreak when the FBI agents came. Serious faces, a dark suit, and piles of paperwork that dwarfed my own proof. My beach house was transformed into Operation Family Fraud Command Central when they set up in my living room. Not mine, but theirs. Your sister has had a busy time. Spreading pictures on my coffee table, Agent Martinez spoke. The seaside home was only the beginning. Brooke was photographed attending business meetings, country club luncheons, and charity galas. Always busy, always grinning. The space. Constantly discovering more victims. According to another agent, we have discovered 37 distinct cases of investment fraud. Moreover, identity theft, money laundering, and tax avoidance. Ever since they came, my phone has been buzzing nonstop. At last, I took one call. Frankie, Helen, agents from the FBI are at my door. Frankie let them in. Tell them everything. However, Brooke promised to assist me in launching my interior design company. Did she tell you to wait and take your money? Quiet. Then a cry. How did you find out? Because she does just that. I turned to Agent Martinez and hung up. How many members of the family participated? She looked at her notes. Nestor, your brother, used his meditation retreats to launder money. The recruiter was your mother, discovering rich, vulnerable widows at her church. The documentation was handled by Julian. Jolie, your niece, was also involved. She advertised phony investment possibilities on social media. My stomach rumbled, and until today, none of them had any repercussions. Families are trusted, she stated plainly. That is the reason this kind of deception is so destructive and successful. Brooke texted me and my phone buzzed. Julian is being taken into custody. Helen, please consider Jolie. She's only a kid. Millions were stolen by a youngster. Over my shoulder, Agent Martinez made a statement. We have proof that she advised other teens to put their tuition money into phony startups. I close my eyes and think about all the times Jolie insulted me, called me pitiful, and videotaped me because of her cruel remarks on social media. It's not as humorous now. The day went by like a slow-motion auto accident. Arrests, confessions, and interrogations. Under government inspection, the flawless facade of my family is collapsing. Aubrey was by my side the entire time. She serves as a constant reminder that not all betrayals are irreversible. Her label does not include all wounds. Late that afternoon, an agent said, "Your mother wants to see you because she has information to trade." In an interview room at the local FBI office, I located Mom. Her makeup was smeared with tears and her expensive clothing was disheveled. "Helen," she made a move for my hand. I carried them about in my pockets. "You must comprehend. I did everything I could for the family." "No," I answered softly. "For Brooke, you did it. For Brooke, you always went above and above. She is unique," Mom demanded. "She has a talent for deceit, connecting people and bringing things to pass." I gave a sour laugh. "Is that considered theft of my trust fund, bringing about change? You were left too much by your father." At last, her mask came off and she snapped. "The others weren't treated fairly. By stealing, lying, and surviving, we were only redistributing goods and making them equal." Her hand smacked into the table. "Helen, some of us didn't have your advantages from birth. We had to take what we needed, some of us." I got to my feet. "I earned all I own. I earned everything you took. And now, you may now learn how to earn stuff as well. In a federal jail." She flinched. "I am aware of additional investments." Other participants. As I walked out into the corridor, I added, "Tell the agents about it." Agent Martinez and Aubrey waited. "We discovered another thing," Martinez remarked quietly. "The seaside home sold family treasures." "Your father's watches, your grandmother's jewelry," Brooks remarked. I muttered that those were in storage. They were sold. The transactions were located. She gave me a piece of paper. "On the sales, she falsified your signature." I approved the sale of my family's history as I gazed at the document with the fictitious version of my name. At last, something shattered inside of me. I cried as I said, "I want to press every possible charge. Each and every one." While Agent Martinez sadly nodded, Aubrey gave me a hug. It was the final buzzing of my phone. Nestor sent a message. "All sisters are forgiven by the cosmos." "When are you going to?" I returned the type. "The federal government doesn't forgive, but the universe could." The sun was sinking on the longest day of my life outside the FBI headquarters. My relatives were detained. My heart was similar broken and more resilient than ever while my inheritance was being tracked down. "Are you prepared to return home?" Aubrey inquired. "Where my beach home is located. My seaside house, empty, quiet, truthful." I answered, "Yes, I'm ready." My phone displayed the booking request. "Francesca Dixon has inquired about renting a beach property." Through the windows of the beach home, I gazed at the notification as my coffee became cold next to my laptop. The same vista my family had relished while scheming to rob me was visible to me as the sunrise painted the ocean gold. Now the home felt different. Calm. Everything had been renovated by me, making them disappear, room by room, fresh paint and new furnishings, fresh recollections. Aubrey had come up with the idea to list the apartment on Airbnb. "Take it back," she said. "Take it as your own." Once more my phone buzzed. Frankie persisted. "Helen, please." After the plea agreement, I need a place to stay, even though I know I don't deserve it. Only a few days. The federal lawsuit had concluded sooner than anticipated. Instead of a risk trial, Brooke accepted a 20-year sentence. Julian received 15. Both Mom and Nestle accepted $10 offers. Jolie was even subject to forced reparation payments and juvenile imprisonment. I composed a one-word response after clicking decline on Frankie's request. Comma. The doorbell rang. Aubrey was standing there with case files and breakfast bagels. Spreading cream cheese on a bagel, she remarked, "The forensic accountants discovered another account under your grandmother's maiden name. Victims are still being tracked down. This time, how much? 2 million. Mostly from Mom's friends at church." I shook my head, remembering all the kind old ladies who believed in my mother's promises and prayers. An email from Remington was pinging my laptop. "Attached are the final reparation figures. You should take a seat for this." I got the file open. My brain spun from the sheer volume of zeros. Aubrey read over my shoulder and added, "They really thought they'd never get caught." The problem with familial fraud is that everyone believes they are unique and remarkable. Untouchable. I stated we weren't family. We were genetically similar markings. A fresh message from an unknown number appeared on my phone, but I could identify Jolie's writing style. "In order to make amends, they are forcing me to sell all of my fancy possessions. I've lost my whole social media business. I hope all is well with you. Everything was damaged by you." I read the text to Aubrey. She gave a snort. "Yes, everything was damaged by you. Nothing about the federal offenses." As we reviewed additional paperwork, impact studies, and victim accounts, the early sun illuminated the house. In black and white, the entire extent of my family's deceit was revealed. There was another booking request. "Scarlett Lynch has inquired about renting a beach property. This time my mother is going by her given name." Audacious. "Please, Helen. I'm going to be placed under home arrest. There is nowhere for me to go. Remove, block, take a breath." "What's humorous due you to Aubrey?" I said. "All of them are still attempting to use this house. Since that's the only piece left, I'm still attempting to claim a portion of it. The rest is gone. Money scams and phony companies. This is true. I see the waves crashing against the beach as I make my way to the window. Don't you think it would feel great to get revenge? No?" I grinned. "It feels ideal." It was the final buzzing of my phone. From Dad's old number, a message. His phone must have been on all these years because of Mom. "Family is the most important thing. Remember that always." I typed back, "Mom, you're correct. Family is the most important thing. That's why I went for a different one." I opened my Airbnb settings after blocking at number 2. One house rule was added. Members of the Dixon Wallace or Lynch families are not permitted to make reservations. There are no exceptions. "Are you ready?" Aubrey gathered her belongings and requested. "In 1 hour, the victim reparation meeting will begin." I took one final glance around my seaside cottage. My life, my home, and my rules. "I actually want to make one stop first," I said. Brooke was being kept at a federal detention facility, so we headed there. I stayed outside. I sat in the parking lot and gazed at the razor wire and tall walls. "There is nothing that you owe them." Aubrey spoke quietly. "Not even a trip." "I am aware." I got the vehicle started. All I had to do to know it was genuine was to witness it. That night, I returned to the beach home and watched the sunset from my terrace. There was silence on my phone. It was quiet in my home. Once more, my life was mine. I launched my laptop and entered a fresh description of the home for the Airbnb listing. "Welcome to Karma Beach House, where the ocean purifies everything. Every sunset signifies an end, and every daybreak ushers in fresh beginnings. Only authentic ones are welcomed by families." I then took up my wine glass, closed my laptop, and toasted the waning sun. Families are formed. Federal prosecutors are more suited to handle some cases than others. At last, I had selected